Newton Lake in Camden County is an example of how poor stormwater management can be costly to taxpayers. The headwaters of this lake were once in this neighborhood, but the wetlands were drained for housing. A small stream that supplies water to the lake starts here, but is fed by runoff from the neighborhood. Too many sediments and nutrients carried into the waterway have caused large algae blooms in the lake.
So there has been an engineering study, it's ongoing right now, and it is pointing to phosphorus as the major cause of the algae blooms.
Camden County paid $25,000 to have the algae and other materials removed.
When we don't use stormwater best management practices, when we don't follow the regulations, we increase pollution that diminishes the quality of our environment and diminishes the quality of the experience that communities have around those natural streams.
10 years ago, New Jersey adopted stormwater regulations aimed at improving water quality and reducing flooding. The idea was for towns to reduce runoff when new buildings went up. The cost to developers depends on the amount of land disturbance and impervious cover put down.
And you're looking at a cost probably, let's say $5,000 to $10,000, somewhere in that range per unit. When you're talking about, and again, a smaller development will have higher costs per unit. A larger development will be able to spread that cost through multiple lots.
The alternative is to pay for more expensive treatment methods. One study found that for every dollar invested in watershed protection, communities could save between $7.50 and $200 in costs for new filtration and treatment facilities.
What good stormwater management is really limiting those negative externalities. You're having the developer or the property owner having to control their off-site impacts.
Heavy runoff from roadways and other impervious surfaces is also the source of flooding. The three major floods that occurred along the Delaware River between 2004 and 2006 resulted in $226 million in claims for damage. One study found that existing tree cover in just one section of the river watershed saved over $2 billion in stormwater infrastructure costs.
What you can see behind me and next to me is actually where there was a cost for improper stormwater management. And we have something that is a structural application. It channelizes the stream. It takes away all the natural qualities of a stream. And you pour a lot of concrete for retaining walls and the bed of the channel. And what you get is this basically artificial conveyance system going through town. What that does is definitely lowers flooding in this particular area where I'm standing, but what it also does is it pushes the problem downstream.
People living in some areas have given up the fight against flooding. Residents living along this stretch of routes 130 and 30 in Camden County have accepted buyouts.
We are literally washing away our private and public lands with the erosion that is resulting from the increased volume of stormwater runoff that happens when a community does not comply with stormwater best management practices and the regulations that require their use.
Many communities have constructed detention basins in the hopes of holding back rainwater, but the problem is often the same when the water is released.
So you can delay the water runoff, but if you don't address the volume, that's something that's going to, again, make situations worse downstream.
There are also hidden secondary costs associated with flooding.
Not only do we have the harms to the businesses and the residents that are suffering from the flood damages that had that water actually physically come into their home to cause the harm, but our community has to provide emergency services. Our police and our firefighters have to go out on rescue operations.
Experts say there are financial incentives for residents living in areas where good management practices are in place. Residents living in towns that follow those practices pay lower costs for federal flood insurance.
That's where people see a direct savings in their flood insurance. They get premium reductions. And that to me is a real easy example of monetizing the benefits of doing better things.
As storm severity increases, cities and towns with a lack of proper stormwater management could face more dangerous flooding.
We're getting a lot of water in a very short period of time, and those really stress infrastructure that exists right now. That infrastructure is very expensive to upgrade. It's very expensive to install new systems, and what we really need to do is, in each project that is both developed and redeveloped, we need to hold that water back. We need to not release that into that community system.